Final hour overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Thursday night football tonight, Cowboys, Giants. The Cowboys laying 5.5 on FanDuel. We'll get to our best bets on that later in the hour. Pierre LeBrun coming up here in a moment, our TSN hockey insider and big Cowboy fan, on whether or not he believes his Cowboys can win tonight. Win and cover, because good teams win. Great teams cover.
He has some insanely positive vibes on the Cowboys over the years. He said to me on the phone before, I love calling that guy after a crushing loss, just like I like calling Carlo after a Bills crushing loss. And he'll say, "Oh, dog, I've never been more positive about my Cowboys." And I'll be like, "What? Like, you have to hate them for a couple minutes."
Do you think he still feels that way after a 1-2 start?
He's going to say, "I've never been more optimistic," and he'll also say this, "I've never loved them more." Crazy comments.
Those might be two separate conversations, but I can't imagine you can be overly optimistic about your team right now if you're a Cowboy fan.
They don't look good, though. I said this
ugly.
Before. Something is weird there. Like, you just get a bad vibe of maybe maybe they'll pull it together here tonight. Maybe they'll pull it together. I'm just concerned about them. I don't know. Pierre must be. You can fake it to make it, but he also might be in the back of his mind going, what the hell's going on? Because he laid eyes on it. Wasn't it week 1?
Week 2. He went down there when they got blown up by New Orleans.
He laid eyes on it. I think he's got to have a little bit of maybe pause for thought.
Well, we'll find out in a moment. So Pierre's coming up. Bob Weeks around the table on what happened at the President's Cup today. If you're just tuning in, the Americans got 5 points. And we're looking at it now. You look at history when in 94, I guess it was, the Americans started the opening session 5-0. They went on to win the final score of 20-12. And in 2000, they won 5-0. And they won, was it 20.5 to 10.5? Like, that's the question now. Do you even sniff competition by the end of tomorrow? Because if the Americans go out and win 4-1 tomorrow and it's 9-1 going into the weekend or something like that, it's insurmountable at that point.
Is there ever
that is damn straight insurmountable.
Yes.
We'll have to check the stats. Has there ever been a 10-0 lead, though?
Like a skunking would be really, like if you're playing like cribbage line, you better get over that Weir seat. Like Mike Weir's got to.
Doogie, look into that. The biggest deficits that the internationals have been facing over the last 20 years. I don't know if there's any kind of skunking. Like, they got to do something tomorrow, man.
Like, I think you play the Canadians, man. Like, again, you got to put Mackenzie Hughes should have played today. I know he was last in terms of the world rankings, and you got to put out. This is what we talked about yesterday. You can't compete with those guys. They're on talent alone. You can't do it. Any combination you put together, if you're Mike Weir up against Jim Furyk, you are losing on the whiteboard, and you're probably going to lose on the course. The only pendulum swing is you get guys who are dying to play. And
some emotion,
some
hunger.
And Mackenzie Hughes is out there shotgunning beers because he's not playing today. And, Pendrith lost, Connors lost. And maybe it would have been the same if Hughes was out there. But why not? I would start Hughes and Connors tomorrow.
Yeah,
that would be my start.
Yeah.
It's mandatory if I'm Mike Weir. Hughes, Connors, you're first out. And you got to go out there and get a win. Wow. And it's huge pressure to put on Canadians.
Jimmy Furyk's going to wheel down to the Peel Pub and just be like, "Hey, Zach Johnson or somebody, give me some names and I'll pull them out, and you guys go fire it up. I don't care who goes first."
That's what's concerning is they may have a night in Montreal and just pull names and just say whoever wants to play is playing tomorrow because we feel so good about where we're at.
Whoever got in earliest, you're going out.
Right.
Tomorrow.
The last 2 guys to arrive aren't playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that could be the way Jim Furyk operates tonight. Who floors it in Montreal more? The last 2 guys won't be playing.
That would be legendary if they said we want to get stronger as a team. Let's floor it.
Yes.
And do some things and get after it tomorrow. That's team bonding.
That's a full swing episode. Imagine that on full swing.
Yeah.
Jim, how'd you pick the team for day 2 of the President's Cup?
Well,
we let them loose in Montreal, and whoever showed up first.
There were a couple guys that were non-functioning, so we couldn't put them on the roster.
We couldn't put them on the roster. All right, Cowboys, Giants tonight. Bob Weeks later in the hour. Best bets later in the hour. Here's our TSN hockey insider, Pierre LeBrun, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Pierre, O-Dog claims you're going to be optimistic about your Cowboys. Is that an accurate assessment?
Well, first of all, it's true. What he said is very true. First of all, who calls a guy after his team gets blown out?
Sickening. It's such a greasy play.
I don't know why I like FaceTiming Carlo after a crushing loss to see him crying.
That's
I don't
sickening.
know. I know it is.
Like,
I don't know.
That's really ugly behavior.
I'll be honest. I just try to go sort of against the grain just to throw you off, O-Dog. Of course, I'm disappointed when you reach out after those games. The reality is I do think they're better than what they've shown. But I told you before the season, I thought they were taking a step back this year. I said that before a game was played.
Okay.
This isn't reacting in the moment. I thought 9 or 10 wins was the most they can get to after having 12-win seasons 3 years in a row. And now I think 9 could be a stretch because they can't stop the run. I will say, though, that they are better than what they've shown. I think they win tonight. I think Prescott's record against the Giants is insane.
Yes.
In his career. But I hate to tell you this, Hazy. I think the Cowboys win a close one.
Ooh, that's not good when I'm laying 5.5 on the road. I don't like that.
It's a
big number.
Are you like in the back of your mind though? I feel like all these diehard fans do this. They speak like negative at the start of the year. I think they're an 8 or 9 win team.
Defense mechanism.
But in the back of your mind, Pierre, when you laid eyes on them, and you laid eyes on them in a really tough night or tough afternoon, when you got on the bird the next morning, were you thinking like, I'm concerned about this team? Like, how much concern deep down do you really have? Or are you faking it to make it right now just because?
No, I'm not faking it. I'm pretty honest about, I have so many friends who are Bills fans and 49ers fans and Steelers fans. I sit on an island. So right. I get this all the time in my social life. But no, I didn't think they were as good this year. And what I feel after watching their defense in week 2 and week 3 is that Mike Zimmer's not Dan Quinn. And the defense is in shambles. The personnel's there, but they're not playing as a unit, and so that concerns me for sure. But it's 3 weeks, and it's been a strange season. I mean, San Fran, look at their record.
Yep.
It's just bizarre what's happened so far. And again, the pressure's kind of off this year because I just didn't think that they could win 12 wins again. So if they surprise me, then I'll be happy.
Some captaincy news throughout the league recently, including in Buffalo today. Rasmus Dahlin gets announced as the new captain of the Buffalo Sabres. We've been talking about it, obviously in Toronto, trying to project where the Leafs are going to line up. With the teams that consistently miss, like the Buffaloes, the Detroits, the Ottawas, the Montreals, which one are you maybe most bullish on taking that step and actually possibly making the playoffs this year?
I would say Ottawa for me out of that group. I think Montreal. I said last week on air here. I think they're going to play games that matter in March, but I think they're going to fall short. Way too much of a step for them to make the playoffs by estimation. Too young a blue line. They're going to give up too many goals. But I think the Senators, something has shifted there in my mind. Steve Stamkos in charge, Travis Green behind the bench. I think Jake Sanderson's going to have an unbelievable year. They fixed, I think, their issues in net. I think the Senators, of those 4 teams, are best positioned to contend for a playoff spot. I could be wrong, as I can be, but that's the team I would pick.
Pierre, the one thing they will not let us do here in Montreal is get any type of updates or any visuals on what's going on in Maple Leaf land. Do you have any up-to-date kind of analysis or status of what's going on at Leaf Camp? Give us the goods.
I thought you were going to say you didn't want to show President's Cup highlights. Oh, man, I was gutted.
Ugly.
This afternoon.
Ugly.
My goodness.
Tough, dude. It's
tough.
What?
You know what? Good for the underdog Americans with the top 2 ranked players in the world to gut that out today.
Right.
But, sorry, that's the sort of loser in me. At least, listen, I think what continues to be interesting, and we won't get an answer till, the end of camp, but it just feels like there's one extra body up front, right? So I'm so curious to see how this plays out. Now that Robertson is signed, and I think they want to keep Robertson, Pat's Reddy's going to get his deal. So how does this shake out? And I just, there's that little birdie in me, and this isn't things I've heard at all. This is just me looking at their lineup, at their roster. Do they have to move a veteran? Like do they look at moving a Cam for a young Croc? Again, I'm not saying they will, But I keep looking at the group up front and saying, how does this all fit before the end of camp? So that's probably the storyline that interests me the most.
Yeah, and the cap issues, which they're not necessarily facing, but any team that's up against it, it can get dicey, and generally you want some flexibility as you get closer to the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's probably a part of the conversation as well, that veterans are more than likely making more money. So, if you're going to move off one, then you might actually give yourself some flexibility at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's why, generally speaking in the cap era, I would say, Brian, that I find preseason so overrated for actual decisions that I think are already made because of the CBA and the cap, right, before camp starts. But there are a few things at play here. With Cowan, is he ready? And if he's ready, what does that mean? With Pacioretty, I think he has a job, but how that final cap number looks like, depending on bonuses and so on, they can play around with that. And to your point about the salary cap. So I think for the Leafs, it's interesting. As much as the CBA kind of dictates 98% of your opening night roster, I think the Leafs will have decisions to make, which could be intriguing.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider, the TSN top 50 list continues to be revealed, and we're into 11 through 20. Again, no surprises here. These are great, great players. But there could be some debate on whether or not certain guys should be higher on the list, lower on the list. And one in particular is Matthew Tkachuk, who's at 13. And when you consider what he was 2 years ago, what he does in the playoffs, who he can be. He
should be 6.
It feels like he's a guy that I wouldn't say he's underrated, but he just
not appreciated as much.
Maybe he's not appreciated as much as he should be. And again, I don't know who comes out of the top 10, because obviously you're talking the 10 best players in the game. I mean, there's great
right.
names up there. But the Florida conversation in general, because Barkov's at 11, Tkachuk is at 13. Do you buy into the cup hangover? Do you buy into the fact that they've played a lot of hockey the last 2 years and it could have some effect on them this year? So
I will just say this. I love Matthew Tkachuk, and I've covered a lot of Florida Panthers playoff games the last couple of years, and he has absolutely brought it. But also, having spent a lot of time with their team, it's unquestionable in my mind that that the right guy is ranked ahead of him. Barkov the team runs through him. And maybe not emotionally, because that's where I think Matthew Tkachuk has changed the Florida Panthers. I think he filled a void there where it's not maybe a comfortable, not something Paul Maurice said to me a couple of years ago about Tkachuk arriving in Florida, that Barkov could be a captain in his way and Matthew Tkachuk can come in and glean some spotlight another way and they could share the leadership. It's worked out so perfectly there. And so, I just think, though, that I would still have Barkov ranked ahead of him. In terms of the Panthers, I chatted with Bill Zito, the GM, last week for a piece I wrote in The Athletic, and you don't really know if you're going to beat the hangover. I mean, as Zito said, do you want the cliches or do you want me to just say the truth? They don't know. Mm-hmm. But the one thing they have going is that they went to the final the year before. Mm-hmm. So they've had short summers 2 years in a row here. So they have at least a bit of a handbook for what's it like when you don't get to totally rest your body and have to get going again. So it's the second year in a row that they will have done it. The other thing I would say that clearly came through in that conversation with Zito is that, he's talked to other people about this. And I remember Julian Breezeball making this point after Tampa's Cup in 2020. The ability to win another one and put your group in a different space than teams that just get the one-off, which, there's lots of teams I know that would take the one-off. But I'm just saying, there's inside that dressing room, there's a real hunger to say, we're not just doing this once. And I think that's driving them right now.
Looking at the list, where are you guys at with Kaprizov? Because I think he's a hell of a player, but, Minnie doesn't get a lot of love. They're a team that's kind of on the outside. They've got the cap issues to deal with and stuff like. Is he a guy that could be a top 10 guy in the league for you?
He's at 15.
I know, but that's why I brought him up. He's 15th. I think he was 12th the year before.
Yep.
Is he trending up, trending down for you, or just because the market's not that sexy, he just doesn't get the love?
It's just when we have these debates, who do you take out? Who do you?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say I'd like to see that guy higher, but who are you moving down? I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that because. Some pretty good players ahead of him there. I feel the Wild games that I did watch last year, I thought he was really good, but just a small little lever below the year before for me. terms of, and some of that was health, but he's a dynamic player on the team where he has to do a lot of it himself too. And some guys get to play on teams like in Colorado and Toronto and Tampa and these offensive teams where you're well surrounded. That's not really the case for him.
Pierre, I heard you talking on Insider Trading saying these goaltenders, Swayman, Shesterkin, they want to kind of reset the marketplace for goaltenders. What is the why behind that? Like if the organization said there's the Hellebuck contract out there, is that kind of good enough? Why have the goaltenders said that that's just not cutting it and we're resetting the market?
Honestly, I got into that this week, O-Dog, because I think it's the most fascinating thing happening in the NHL right now. Like goalies have not had the same rise in salaries in terms of the elite compared to the top D and the top forwards. They've been left behind a little here, and some of that has been, sharing of the crease, the sports science, not playing as many games as a starter. But a lot of it, honestly, and we've talked about this before, but NHL front offices believe less than ever that they can properly predict the performance of a goalie over the course of time. That there's more unpredictability in a position. I don't want Noodle to jump at me here, but but you've seen that in the allocation of cap dollars. I mean, Hellebuck, you guys know this. Hellebuck in the summer of 23, it looked like he was gone. Like he had originally indicated, I don't know if I'm signing, and then his camp kind of softly, unofficially had a check on the market. And what they found out is no one was ready to spend huge money. That $9 million a year, $10 million a year wasn't out there for the guy who was the most consistent goalie in the league the last 4 or 5 years, or one of. And so he re-signs in Winnipeg, got a terrific deal there. But, Saros, top 5 goalie in the world, $7.74 million a year in Nashville. I get it, tax-free. But the market just hasn't been the same for these guys that it has been for a top D or a top forward. And Shesterkin's camp is saying, we're going against that. And they're going to win. I mean, whether it's with the Rangers or with another team next July 1st, Igor Shesterkin will be the highest paid goalie in NHL history by the end of it.
Yeah.
He's going to get, $11-12 billion a year, I think.
Well, I mean, my argument for this, Pierre, and let's just stay with Shesterkin. He's won a Vezina. He was a finalist for the Hart, I believe, or if he wasn't.
Yeah, 2 years ago he was.
Yeah. So, people kind of, further brow and go, geez, a goalie shouldn't make that amount. Like Elias Pettersson's going to make $11.6 million this year. Like you can go on this list of top paid players. William Nylander's going to make 11.5.
Right.
There's Rasmus Dahlin's going to make 11. Like these are all really good players, but would Shesterkin not be considered in that same conversation as top players in the world? But
there's no question. Yeah, there's no question. But I guess I'll flip it back to you. When Igor Shesterkin's at his best, and his career playoff save percentage is .928, by the way.
Right.
.928 career playoff
Wow.
save percentage. If you know you're going to continue to get that version of Shesterkin for the next 7-8 years, it's not even a debate. You take Shesterkin over William Nylander all day for impact on your team. Come on, let's be real.
Right.
But the difference is that a lot of people believe that Nylander's productivity is more predictable and consistent than what you think a top goalie will bring you over the next 7 years, even if he's the top goalie in the world right now. That's what I'm hearing out there. Now, listen, the Rangers are willing to pay him. The Rangers have indicated to him they're willing to give him more than Carey Price. So why this isn't done yet, who knows? But he's going to get paid.
Yeah, and Carey signed that a long time ago.
Yeah, it's 10.5, isn't he?
10.5.
That was moons ago.
Yeah, that was 7 years ago.
And that remains the high watermark for goalies.
Right.
2017 signed that, Brian. Yeah, and then Bobrovsky got 10, and then no one's been double digits since. And like I said, what else does Connor Hellebuck have to do to prove to anyone that he's not a top 3 goalie in the world the last 6-7 years?
Well, he signed his deal.
Yeah.
He took his 8.5. Yeah.
Pierre, I find it crazy how many teams would say, "Oh, I don't know, one of those guys comes up. I don't want to trade for him because I don't want to pay it." And they would say, like these smarty pants always do, "We just need this kind of goaltending or that kind of goal," and they end up with no goaltending. Wow. So why not take the chance on a stud goalie? That's insane.
Even if it is presented to you this way, Shesterkin for 8 years, and he's going to give you 4 great years and 4 awful years, I'd still take it. Because that's 4 tickets where it's like, I'm going to the dance, and no one's better than him in the playoffs.
And I might have in the dance the best goalie in the world.
Exactly. 4 times.
Right.
And that like that alone is like, I'll chew on the other 4 where we need everything else to work our way.
Yeah, and listen, when Mark Bergevin gave Carey Price that 8-year contract, $10.5 million a year, I know for a fact that he didn't think Carey Price was going to play out the 8 years. But at the time, Carey Price is the best goalie in the world. Mm-hmm. So that's what it cost to keep Carey Price, and Carey Price brought them to a cup final. But you know, to answer your question, O-Dog, what I would answer is twofold. One of the reasons teams don't want to pay a goalie, no matter how good he is, that kind of money is what it leads you for the rest of your lineup cap-wise. 2, the Vegas Golden Knights won a cup with Adin Hill. I'm not taking a shot at Adin Hill. They won a cup with Adin Hill, and the year before that, Colorado won a cup with Darcy Kemper. And they loved Darcy Kemper so much they didn't sign him. Yeah. So I guess the alternative is, and you can win cups in different ways and build your team in different ways, but there are teams clearly in recent years that have put their money elsewhere and won a cup with decent goaltending, but not top 10 goaltending.
Well, you're right. Now, with Florida winning a Stanley Cup with a $10 million goaltender, does that maybe change the look at things? Because you're right, like it's a copycat league, and there's only a couple double-digit goaltenders out there.
And Vasilevsky's at like 9.
Yeah, 9.5 or 9.3 or something.
9.5.
Yeah, like that's pretty close.
And he's a top-tier goalie. Like Shesterkin has to be in that conversation. And Pierre, I don't think there's anybody's doubting that. But he's only one of 6, 8 guys that could even kiss up on double digits. If Saros is Hellebuck, Demko, if he could ever stay healthy, there's literally a handful. Markstrom.
Ottinger, we'll see where Ottinger goes this year. He's still only 25 years old, but Ottinger in Dallas.
But that's you're paying for ultra talent, and I agree with you, Brian. If 4 out of 8 years Shesterkin is the best player in a particular series or anything, I'll take that.
It's to have him is a huge bonus, man. It's a trump
and don't forget that part of the reason I think the ask is high, and for Swayman as well, not as high because Swayman's RFA, but the cap keeps going up now. It went up this summer. It's going up again next summer. Dreisaitl's extension reflects that, right? $14 million a year. So that's part of the ask here too. Let's not forget it's the percentage of the cap, not just the AV that you got to look at, and the percentage of the cap might be similar to what other goalies have signed, but the AAV is going to be higher because the cap's going up.
Right.
But I'll flip this to you three before we wrap this up, and you got to give me your true answer on this because let's make this about the Leafs because why not?
Yep.
If the Leafs get bounced out in the first round, and Marner hasn't signed yet, Durkin hasn't signed yet, and it's July 1st, and you're the Leafs and you got a shot at either one still. What do you do?
Well, you're clearly going with Shesterkin to do something different, Pierre.
Yes. It would be mandatory to take a run at Shesterkin, assuming you can get him.
Right.
But
interesting.
I think it'd be a mandatory because you have to finally after 9 years say, okay, this core isn't going to work for us.
Right.
Like that alone, it's not even necessarily an indictment on Mitch or anything like that. It's just the collection of the core. And if Matthews is here and Willie's here, mix it up and bring in a number 1 stud goalie that might change the complexion of your team. Would change the complexion of your team.
I'll be a little crazy here. What if they lose in the first round, but Joseph Woll wasn't the problem? But they decide
there you go.
We're going to spend that money on Mikko Rantanen or whoever else is available.
That's a different element.
There was a situation in Toronto many moons ago where Felix Potvin was in there, and they said, you know what, we're going to go get Cujo.
But
that's right.
No, you're right. But what I'm saying is, what if Joseph Woll plays 60 games this year, plays really
well? That would
be
ideal because he's not making that much money.
Right, and then he shows he can be a 1, but the team and they
perfect world
change
scenario.
A dynamic. We're just going to take player X, which happens to be Marner, out, and we're going to replace him with
that is perfect world scenario.
You name the player, whether it's Ranton or whoever else is available at that.
If Wall's making 3.8 and proves he can be a top 10 goalie in the league,
bonus scenario,
then you're using the $22 million that's available to you.
That's where my head went just to see where Wall was.
Perfect world scenario, but that's not the case. Then you got to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
All right, Pierre. Go Cowboys by 6 or more tonight. Go Cowboys by 6 or more
Well,
tonight.
that I hope you're right. I hope that you're right,
yep.
Because it sounds like you guys, you and Al's brother need it. So,
yeah, we do. Well, Al's brother's on thin ice, man. You don't you worry about Al's brother.
He's been doing some stuff behind the scenes, Pierre, that would make you sick.
Shady character.
I'm always available, Hazy. Come
okay.
On, there.
Listen, the bat line, man, it may be ringing. You never know. You never know. All right, Pierre, thanks, buddy.
All right, see you guys.
Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Yeah, Al's brother, man, being greasy with Luke on a side chat.
And there's text evidence. I have a screenshot of texting with other things that you have not aware of.
It's just very disappointing. It's really horrible behavior, and it's disappointing. But, hey, listen, we'll see what happens. We charge forward, laying the points, Cowboys minus 5.5. Pretty emotional scene out in Oakland as the A's played their last home game.
Really, is it?
There's a guy digging dirt up and handing it to the fans. It's sold out.
They're going to Vegas. I think next year they're in Sacramento, I believe it is. But it was a sold-out game. They won. They haven't been much of a team. But, it sucks when you see fans lose their team.
I was in the Hartford Arena when the fans are just watching us. Kevin Dineen at center ice saying thank you for everything, and they're just like, but you know what? At the end of the day, there's certain part of it that's tough. It's like if you're not going to go out there and support your team, you don't really have the right to bitch and complain when they leave.
Well, that's the thing.
Do you know what I mean?
There's always a portion of ticket holders that are committed.
Yeah.
But if it's 5,000 instead of 15,000, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, the 5,000, I feel for you. The guy who shows up in Oakland today hasn't been there in 15 years.
And said, how dare you guys leave?
That's maybe a bit different.
Because that guy's out there.
But it's a bit greasy. This owner's a bit greasy, and he's trying to play the government to pay for stuff and all that. And I think it's been a long-standing issue. And they've treated fans poorly. They've sunk the team. They've sunk cost. It has been a poorly run operation, and they obviously have their sights on on Vegas. And what sucks is they lost the Raiders to Vegas, and now they're losing the Athletics to Vegas. Vegas is just swallowing up Oakland sports teams. Right. And the Warriors, who played in Oakland forever, they've moved into San Francisco with their new stadium. So Oakland's been taking a hit in terms of the pro sports side for quite some time. Effectively, Team International. Oakland is the Team International of sports towns.
Man, they need a rally. Does Weirzy let them loose tonight?
I think that might a slump buster night downtown Montreal.
Think so? You think
it might be the only maneuver. Is Weirzy gets a party bus going and saying we're
Rent out the Shea. Rent out the Shea. And go nuts, fellas. We need to change this up.
Wow.
That might be the only
way out of this,
It
man.
might be the only way out of it. Weirzy puts his card down and says, boys,
good luck.
I'll see you on the tee tomorrow.
And whoever wants to show up first, you're going out to get us some points.
Wow. Could you imagine?
I think it would be brilliant. Yeah. And I think actually, I know we're kind of joking. I'm not really joking.
No, I'm not either. It's go home to the hotel. Guys, put your golf gear on for tomorrow. You wheel in there and you say, this bus is leaving at 6 a.m. for the course, and let's rally behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a monumental stand for the international squad, and that's what they might need.
They need something. They're down 5-0 after one day.
Yeah, they do.
Bob Weeks will join us. He's been here all week. He's been obviously to a bunch of these tournaments. He knows it as well as anyone how big of a hole this is now with the U.S. up 5-0 on the international side. Our best bet still to come as well later in the hour. We're live in Royal Montreal. The President's Cup. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour on the Thursday nighter tonight. It is Cowboys-Giants kicking off Week 4 in the NFL. You can watch that on TSN. I'm sure you've been watching the President's Cup all day. And if you did, then you're aware that the United States are up 5-0. 5-0 on day one. This is the first time that's happened in 24 years. I think it was back in 2000 the last time that happened. And needless to say, the Americans ran away with that tournament. I think they won by 11 points back in 2000. Here's Bob Weeks, our golf insider. How do you explain it, Bob? Like, what do you say? Like, if you're Mike Weir, what do you possibly say?
Well, if you're the optimist, you say we came close in a lot of matches. If you're the realist, you say we're down 5-0, and they're a third of the way to getting to the points they need. I don't know. I feel so sorry for Mike Weir. He just has been doing this for 2 years, nothing but this thing, essentially.
Imagine that, like, for 2 years, Bobby, and you just get waxed like that.
I mean, his big thing was they wanted to get out early and get a lead in the first 3 or 4 holes. He said that statistically, if you look at it, if you get a lead after 3 or 4, then you're a better, like 80% chance of winning. Well, they didn't. They didn't get out to any leads.
Yeah. Is there anything you can take away from today and go to build on tomorrow? I mean, we're trying to be positive here, but is there a speech tonight? Is there anything that you go, hey, I like this, I like that, maybe there's something where they can make a...
Rudy's going in the room.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Ben Crenshaw, when he talked to his team in the
got a good feeling
Ryder
about
Cup.
this.
But yeah, exactly. But I don't really think there's anything you can do except send them out and hope, you get like a 4-1. If you're going to lose 5, you might as well do it in the first round. At least you got a chance to come back. But, I mean, I can remember one, I think it was 2017 at Liberty National, where the Americans, I don't think they swept. But the big worry was that it was going to be over on Saturday. And they weren't even going to have to, Sunday was going to be meaningless. And that's really not what you want.
That's terrifying.
Where does he take any, I mean, you have to look at this, and I don't know what the inspiration was behind the selections going out, but does he take any heat for who he put out on that golf course today? Or was it just as plain and simple? Like, can you clearly say that was their best chance to get a lead today and they just didn't do it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've got all sorts of analytics. They've done all sorts of research. They've talked to these guys. These were the best matchups they were trying to get. They seem to be happy with who was playing who on the American side.
Well, they can't be happy after getting waxed like that. It's got to come into question.
I'm saying beforehand. And I mean, you can go and question. Hindsight's great for these guys. If you win this thing as a captain, you are a genius. If you lose it, you're a buffoon, right?
Yeah.
And there's just no. Now you're going to go back and say, well, we should have picked Adam Hadwin instead of this person, or you can go back and second guess. But if the guys don't play well, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. For me, it's very simple. I have Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes go out first tomorrow.
Yep.
That's my play. But in order for that to happen, Mike Weir has to throw out all of these analytics he's been referencing for 2 years. Every interview he does, including with us at Hamilton, we have the numbers, you look at it, we know what we want, they obviously had a plan for day 2. And now it's 5-0 and you got smacked. I feel like you got to throw that plan out, and you got to start leaning on some intangibles here. Put the Canadians out and hope they win something for you.
I mean, I think there's a danger in just going overboard right now. Because you do have some stats that hopefully will bear out for you. And if it was Saturday, I would do that. That's what Trevor Immelman did 2 years ago. He just said, okay, forget that. We'll put these guys out because they want to play together. But Mac Hughes and Corey were always set to play. They were going to play tomorrow. But it's important that they get out first. Talking to Taylor Pendrith just a couple minutes ago, he said it was so flat out there. Like there's just no energy in the crowd. And that's what you need guys to get going. You need some guys to start. Tom Kim was doing a little bit, but you need some guys to whip it up there and get some crowd.
Well, Bobby, that's just like the Maple Leaf games where guys are like, sometimes it's flat in there. What needs to happen? Are the people flat, or are they just not making enough putts for people to get jacked up and not be...
Yeah.
Because you're not kidding. We were on the 10th tee for, half an hour? Mm-hmm. We saw 2 or 3 different groups go by, and it was like, hey, great shot. And I'm like,
there wasn't much life.
Dude, if this was in a place like, I don't know, Arizona or something, people would be crawling over the top of that stanchion there, and they'd be gooned and yelling and hollering, and it would be a big deal. And I didn't feel that.
I think the issue is with that. I can't speak to Montreal. I can't speak to, it was here in 07, and maybe it eases into it. But being on Team International feels hollow. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, and they're trying to spin it as, well, this is Canada's time, and it's the Canadian guy. But it's not. Like, it's where the American, when this is held in America, Americans know who they're rooting for. And I understand in Europe it can be, there was no Italians when it was in Rome, but that's Europe, and there's a history to it, and they travel. I don't think there's Australians here. Are there South Africans walking around? Are there people from Argentina saying, I've always been a Team International guy. I have to be here for this because I'm international? I think that makes it more difficult for the President's Cup.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to a President's Cup, you hear as well, you could be standing on the 11th hole, and on the 14th, you'll hear a scream from the 14th hole. You didn't hear any of that today on any part. And there is some talk about the cohesion of the international team. There are different languages, different cultures, but the guys don't sort of mention that too much anymore. Ernie Els with the Shield, it sort of brought them together. So I don't know if that's an excuse. Maybe they just need to sell more beer here and get these fans a little more into it. Maybe a Friday afternoon is going to be a little better.
That's the thing. And like you said, the fear of where the number is going to be going into the weekend. Because I fully expect this place is rocking come the weekend. But it is tough. It's like walking, Game 4, you're down 3-0 in the series. You're like, all right, I guess we're going down because we have tickets.
Right.
Where, it's tough to picture it.
The idea of it being kind of something locked up before Sunday would be catastrophic.
If it's 9-1 going into Saturday, that is just a disaster.
So, but that's what I mean. That's what I was saying. Like, is there anything that you, other than just play better,
The only thing they got, Noodles, is to send 2 Canadians out that go nuts and make a bunch of birdies and people start going crazy around here. For other players to say, oh, maybe we got a fighting chance.
But going nuts isn't shotgunning beers. It's making shots, right?
Well, for the players to create that vibe, they have to go on a serious run, and they have to put balls inside the Americans, and then they have to actually hit putts.
You got to get guys in the fairway. You got to get 2 guys on the green.
Yes.
Like it's so few times today was that in play. Like it was always seemed like it was 2 against 1, 2 Americans and 1 international fighting it out. But you can't do that.
Well, and a number of lip outs by the international team today on putts, on chips. Like they were close, and we came on the air. And all 5 matches were still ongoing, and it was jockeying a little bit.
Isn't it scary how you said they're all close, and then that's the end result?
That's what I think is so. It's kind of depressing, and I feel for Mike Weir and I feel for that crew because they're looking at that and a couple of shots here or there, and it's 3-2 Americans, or it's 2.5.
1 long putt, 1 chip in. That makes a difference.
That's how much it can change.
But who do you circle and go that? Who's the game breaker? Who makes that shot?
You got. I mean, listen. It's hard to sort of say who's going to play great. You hope that these guys are playing great. Taylor Pendrith makes 6 birdies and doesn't win. That's the kind of thing you need to flip around. The next day, maybe he'll make 4 and he'll probably win.
Right.
But Mac Hughes is a guy who's going to start pumping things up. I think. I mean, in spite of the beer on the tee, he's been talked about how pumped he is, how he wants to get the crowd into it. So maybe if he makes a couple of early ones. But you need to get off to a fast start. That's so much. Not only to get the leaderboard, but to get the crowd behind you.
Yeah.
That might have been one thing, just like you said, Hayes, by watching Mac Hughes all week, how fired up he was and how jacked up he was. And if I was Weirzy, I'm looking at him saying, I don't see anyone else that jacked up. I might as well take a flyer and throw him out there first with Corey Connors.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight is 20/20, but that was my view yesterday, is that I just feel like you have to be realistic that the Americans have the clear upper hand. It's just not that close based on talent and based on the way these guys are playing. You have to bank on intangibles, and some things kind of feeling fairy tale around here.
Why do they have the upper hand in this event and not the Ryder Cup? It's not like these players are stiffs compared to those Europe. Does anyone have the answer on why they play in the Ryder Cup and they're rigid and they're stiff and they miss putts? And then they get here, and they're all Tiger Woods in 2004.
I mean, it's like they're playing Saturday afternoon golf or something, right? They don't really seem to have any pressure, don't seem to have any tension. They're great players, but I think maybe it's just their history of how they've swept this event time after time after time. And let's face it, they are statistically a much better team than the internationals. Doesn't mean the internationals can't play well on a week or a given day or a given round. But it's an uphill climb. It's tough.
Yeah, Bob Weeks with us. And some of it, I'm sure a lot of it is the crowd. Like the Americans go to Europe, it's crazy over there.
Yeah.
It is crazy. There are hundreds of thousands of people, and they're all anti-American. Where here, it just never felt like it was an anti-American crowd.
On the first tee, when they were warming things up and they introduced the American wives, and they got booed, and I thought, okay, this is what you need, because you do need some kind of an edge in there. You do need an animosity between either the fans or the players.
Cheer when they miss a putt,
right?
anything.
Yeah, us versus them, anything like that. But I don't think the players gave them that today, so it's hard to fault them.
Hard to cheer when you're chasing the score the whole time, right?
Well, and also the built-in belief for a lot of people that it was going to be tough to win anyway. I mean, that's another element of it. It's like if you give people a reason to continue to believe what they believed all along, it's really going to get carried away.
Yeah.
And that's especially in effect now that it's 5-0 U.S.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. You're really going to have to get something, chip away at it a little bit. 3-2, 3.5, 1.5, something like that tomorrow. If you lose even by 1 point tomorrow, you're.
Well, you got to have
trouble.
something positive to gravitate to. That's really what it is, and then you get some momentum going. But man, it just didn't. It's disheartening.
It is.
Disheartening.
It's disheartening.
It really
We're
is.
here. We've been here all week. We've been jacked to be here, and we're pumping it up.
Club like that. That's tough.
It's like, man, 5-0. But on the American side, again, they didn't run away with anything. There weren't handshakes on the 12th green today or anything like that. It was not embarrassing or anything. But it just also felt like the Americans knew how to close. Like you look at Shoffley's shot into 18 where he just said, check, please, see you later. And then Thagala, who is not of the same caliber in terms of winning, in terms of a resume, he did the same thing when he showed up at 18.
Keegan Bradley rolls in a putt to make sure there's no half
curling
right there.
Putt.
Yeah,
Yes.
on 18 to cut that one as well. And there was a bunch of moments like that where you could feel that something could have turned if that doesn't happen. And as you said before, I can't remember, was you who said it before, that how many lip-outs did the international team have today? They had a lot of lip-outs, and maybe they'll start falling tomorrow. But
that's what you got to hope. That's what you got to hope.
Has Weirzy addressed the media? Like, was he kind of down in the dumps, or
he was just going in there now when I came up to see you guys. But as I say, I talked to Taylor Pendrith, and he was like, it was like somebody had just told him Christmas was canceled. I mean, he was just really kind of devastated. But I don't think they've given up the ship. I think they're going to announce the pairings, and we'll see what happens if they haven't done it already. I think they may have done it. So you try to regroup, but I don't know what you tell the guys after a looking like that.
Team dinner.
Yeah.
Team dinner.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Party
Gibby
bus.
Steakhouse.
That would be my play. Party
That's
bus.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Play guilty tomorrow. Who knows? Yeah, and listen, Mike Weir's going to wear it because it's on his home soil. He's so proud.
Dude,
he wants
that
it.
is the thing.
That's what
Like
sucks.
2 years straight, I was telling Noodles that, like in an instant, like he just spent 2 years picking out hotel stuff, clothing stuff, pairing stuff, meals, things to do for the wives, everything in his life for 2 years, and that goes out and happens. And he probably had one moment today where he said, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
like, it's crazy stuff to put that much into it.
I feel so sorry for the guy because he's so dedicated to this, and he's been assistant captain. He's been on the teams. He's been close. He's really never had the win. He had a tie one year in South Africa, but for all these guys, I mean, listen, Graham Dillette was played on there, and he actually had 3.5 points when he played, which is more than Pendrith and Hughes and Connors.
And you know how much this means to Graham Dillette. Like, you saw him at the that Memorial, that tournament. Like, he was so jacked up, and this means so. It must have made him sick watching this today.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
Yeah, and a lot of the international players, I guess, or some of them, are speaking on the crowd as well, right? Where, like Tom Kim, I guess, said it was too quiet on home soil. Wish they would have helped us out more. That's a dangerous game by Tom, though.
Yeah.
Be careful, man. You guys haven't won a thing.
Give us something to cheer about. We'll
That's
be there
right.
for you.
Yeah.
You lose 5-0 because the crowd wasn't lively
chicken or
enough.
the egg,
You're making it off. If it's a shellacking tomorrow, you're making life awfully difficult on yourself with that comment.
Yeah.
As true as it is.
Well, and that again, it speaks to the nature of international, or Canadians have no association with Tom Kim.
No,
Like,
that's
none.
right.
You
I mean,
know?
they know he's on the team because he's wearing the colors and
Yes,
stuff like that.
But it's not like he grew up in Saskatchewan.
It's like, he's mad because,
Anyway.
that is tough. You can't blame it on the fans. You blame it on your own play. See if you can respond tomorrow. But that it is. Today, like something like this doesn't hurt Mike Weir's legacy, does it?
No, I think it's just, listen, it'll sting for him for the first couple of months afterwards, but the next President's Cup, there's lots of international President's Cup captains who have done pretty poor, so it's not like he's the only one.
That's valid. All right, Bob. Good seeing you, man.
Take care, guys. We may see you a little later.
We'll be here.
Okay.
We'll see you tonight, and we'll be here tomorrow. And we're looking. Hopefully, by the time we're on the air, things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's the plan. There's Bob Weeks joining us here around the table. We're live at Royal Montreal. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Cowboys money line for the same-game parlay. Okay, Cowboys money line. Jake Ferguson, I think he's got to be a bigger part of the offense here for the Cowboys. He's been a little bit banged up, but I think he's a pretty good, pass-catching tight end. I think Ferguson, 40-plus yards, alt receiving tonight. Daniel Jones, 25-plus yards rushing tonight. That paying plus 284. Cowboys money line. Ferguson over 40 yards receiving. Jones over 25 yards rushing tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the OverDrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. 19-plus, physically located in Ontario. So the groupings are starting to come out for tomorrow, and Listen, the international side, they need a miracle now. They need to win at least 3 points tomorrow.
Yeah, they need
minimum 3
I get
points.
it. You know that they're not like familiarized with Tom Kim or thinking of him or the international players as their own. But come on, man, you're coming out to this event. Bring something.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, don't just say, "Hey, I got tickets." If you're coming, let's get real.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It is a sport. It is a sporting competition.
Yeah.
Like it's different than your standard golf tournament where you're just watching individuals play. You have a team here. You do have a side to root for. It's the international team. So I get it. It's weighted equally on both sides. Maybe you could argue.
Yeah,
the
like if
chicken or
this
the
was
egg.
in the States, I'm telling you, this would be crazy
Of course.
stuff. Like, let's get involved.
But they
here.
root again. If this was Canada versus the U.S., it would be very different.
Yeah,
I
very
do think
different.
the fact that it's international, it's just difficult for some people to wrap their heads around. It's like
Wrap around it quickly. Let's
Sure.
get going.
Let's get her going
Fire it
tomorrow.
up,
All
Pierre.
right,
Fire
come
it
on
up.
now. We'll be front and center. We're going to be here, and we're going to be fired up tomorrow. Can't wait for it. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.